Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, it's been a while since I've done a show, and I've been busy with personal matters and um, exploring. I'm now traveling on the road full time. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but my studio is in a mobile home, or I shouldn't say a mobile home, an RV. And so this brick that you see back here is, yeah, it's bullshit. But it looks nice. Yeah, that's sticking out. But anyway, I have it because I like the background. So yeah, I've created an office studio in the back of my RV, and I'm traveling here and there just to explore, to meet people, spread the word, and have a good time. So, a lot of stuff has gone on since I was here last. I was working on talking about some of the experiences that I've had. Let me pull my mic a little closer. Some of the experiences that I've had in dealing with, well, you know, getting old, getting older as a man. Um, Now I can tell you that I was married. Technically, I still am. So I've been quote married for 26 years, but we separated. It seems like 5 or 6 years ago. The first part of that separation was inside a house. We had a big house, and so I lived on the top floor. She lived on the bottom, and it worked out. And then later, I think about 2 years ago, she bought her own house, and she's got a my one of my best friends is her now new man, and I'm fine with that. And so I'm single. The only reason I'm not divorced is because we can't seem to agree on a settlement. You know how that happens. But anyway, that'll happen. So yes, I'm a single and available, ladies. You can send your emails to. I'm just joking. Um, so, like I said, I have been focusing on the trials and travails that I've experienced as a man getting older. Um, what I'd like to talk about today is my experiences with elderly parents who are growing feeble and declining. Everybody has to face this unless, God bless you, you lose your parents early. Um, my parents are amazingly long lived. I need to plan for a long retirement because my mother's sister died at 103. My mother is 88. And there were a lot of kids in the family, but that's just an example. So she could have 15 years left, but she has dementia. In fact, she's been declared incompetent by two doctors. So I'm managing her affairs in effect. And my dad is 91. He'll be 92 in a few months. And, you know, he's feeble, medically, I mean, physically feeble, meaning that he is unsteady on his feet, can fall easily, and also he can't hear. I mean, he has, severe hearing loss even with hearing aids, so he can barely hear. And this is a guy who spent his life as a salesman. In-person salesman. Everything to him was about personal relationships and being in person with people. And he was very social. In retirement, he would do things, simple things like go up to the 7-Eleven locally and hang out and talk to whoever was there and flirt with the ladies and, that kind of thing. He'd love to go around. He'd visit people, bring them stuff, little gifts. This is what he did. Well, be honest, my grandfather, his dad, did the same thing. But my dad was particularly social, and he built a very successful business um, based on that, based to a great extent on his personality. And it's interesting. We were invited, he and I, because I got in the business later, and we were invited to an event in a city in the next state where my dad's business was originally based, and it was an industrial museum. And somebody made a comment that my dad should be in that museum he should have a monument to him because he was so critical in building the industry of that city. And I was really honored by that. And then the guy who was running the event, which was a celebration of like 50th anniversary of some manufacturing concern, in his speech basically said he credited my dad to everything. That my dad started the business. He basically sold equipment. That's what my dad did. Sold equipment to the guy on credit and told him, "Pay me when you can," which he could afford to do at that point. And the guy did pay him and bought a lot more over time. And the guy at the time was saying, he was saying in the talk that he didn't think he could run a business. He'd always been an employee. He was just a machine operator. And how could I run a business? But he knew that there were people that would contract him, subcontract work, and that he probably could make a living, but he was scared. You know, everybody's scared about taking that risk, taking that jump. And my dad, I think, way more than the money, he wanted to see people succeed. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of him. I actually captured all that speech on video by accident. I just started videoing, and then right after I did, he started a tribute to my dad. It was a wonderful experience. There was like hundreds of people there. But anyway, I not this is not about praising my dad, but my dad was a very outgoing, very social, very involved. He started a scholarship for people who were studying manufacturing in the local community college. And he gets letters every year from the new scholarship recipient. He just cared about things, and that's who I learned a lot from. Well, here's my dad now. He can't hear. He can't walk except with great difficulty. He can't drive. He's stuck. Now, I tried to get them help, somebody that would come in, take him around, but my mother is, obsessive compulsive. She's a clean nut, and she has, advanced dementia, and sometimes she's unreasonable, and she won't let anybody come in the house. So basically, he's stuck. He's stuck watching TV, and it's not so good for him. And his father died when he had prostate cancer, and that created a tumor on his base of his spine, and he lost the use of his legs. And once he did, he laid down, he closed his eyes, and he just died. And I remember watching that process, and I said, "This is how your father, me, meaning me, will die." If your father loses his mobility, he loses his ability to be a social butterfly, to be around people, to get that feedback, the laughs, the smiles, the energy, he will die. And he's close to that. I mean, his health is fine, although we had some tragedy in the family a couple of years ago. And as a result of that, I got him and my mother checked up by a cardiologist, and he had a massive blockage, which we had no warning of. He had a triple bypass at age 90, and he bounced right back. And then he got COVID while he was bouncing back. In fact, the whole family got COVID because we were all helping him. And the guy's strong. So, I mean, physically, I think he could last quite a while. But, a lot of what keeps us alive is our spirit, our desire to live. People seem to be able to choose to die, like I believe my grandfather did. And I worry about that. Because my dad is rational and we can hang around out and do things. And my mom she knows who I am. And sometimes she's fine. Sometimes, she's continually asking me, "Is this person dead? Is that," she just forgets things. And it's advancing. It goes in long platform, where it's level, and then suddenly it'll have a drop. Um, so anyway, this is part of being an older person, an older man. Your parents are going to decline. They may decline at the same time. Mine both started at the same time to decline. My dad's feebleness, his weakness in his muscles, started around the same time that my mother's strange behavior and dementia started. We didn't know what it was at the time, but we know what it is now. But yours may be in very different times. You may lose one, and then you deal with the mourning from the other and from you and their loneliness. My parents have been married for 70 years, 70 last year. So there's 71 in December. They've been together for a long time. I mean, my mother was a teenager. My dad was 20 when they got married. They had zero, they had nothing. And they built a successful life. So you watch that as it degrades. And when I started experiencing their degrading, I didn't feel anything, believe it or not. I mean, I knew it was happening. I took a logical approach. I tried to get them everything I thought they needed. We visited a lot of assisted living facilities all around the region to check out where, if my dad loses all of his ability to walk, he's going to have to go to assisted living because his house is not handicap friendly. Either that or do some major construction, and that's going to take time and money. He can afford it, but the time, no, he needs to use the bathroom today. So that's going to happen, but he doesn't want to do it now. So he's still staying at home, and we'll see. It's really his call. But you're going to face these things, and you're going to face a lot of decisions. I've also had to deal with a kind of it was actually shocking for me experience. It wasn't a complete shock, but the degree of what happened has shocked me, and that is sibling jealousy. It's funny. I have an uncle. He was the husband of my dad's sister, and he's like 95, and he's still good, still getting around. And he told me about years ago when his parents died and they had to settle the estate. And there was a fight over $10,000, and it was bloody between him and his sister. And his sister just went berserk. And this is a very gentle, kind, very intelligent, a self educated man, a soft spoken, and you could see what it did to him. In the case of my sister, you wouldn't believe me if I told you the things she's done. Um, well, I'm not going to say anything more about that. But anyway, the things she has done really sent me for a tailspin. And it's when I realized how much I was affected by my parents' decline. Because, like I said in the beginning, I didn't feel anything. I thought I was going to be fine. I had kind of drifted from my parents a bit. And I wasn't that close to my dad, but it was okay. And for most of my life, he worked all the time. The stories I told you, I learned after he retired. I didn't really know what was going on. And my mother, we had some issues going back. And so it was healthier for me to be away. And so I tried to be away. And a lot of us have that. We have birth family trauma from our childhood. And going back to that birth family, you become 8 years old again. You're triggered a lot of times. And this is something a lot of you will experience. Your parents will begin teaching you treating you like you're a kid. And it'll make you feel like a kid. It'll make you feel disrespected, all this kind of stuff. And yet you've got to be empathetic to them. You've got to realize that they are hurting or they are struggling. They are frustrated. And of course, you are too. And a lot of times the caretakers become ignored. The family gets ignored because everything's about the people who are suffering, and they are suffering. So this is coming for many of you. And I'm just saying it can be dominating. I mean, I had 4 kids. They're all grown now. And raising them was easier than dealing with my parents as elderly people. They were more easygoing. They were less difficult. We had our challenges, disappointments, but more successes. And I'm very proud of my kids. And it wasn't stressful. Sometimes my kids would approach me and say, "Dad, is it hard being a dad?" They're trying to be nice and support me. And I said, "No, actually, it was never hard being a dad. It was a pleasure. You guys are nice. My challenges were more at work and in my personal love life and stuff like that. My kids were easy to me, but my parents, they ain't easy. No way. They're a handful, especially my mom. Of course, now it's kind of easier now that she has dementia because I realize some of it's just not her. She said things that are crazy and then denied it the next day because she doesn't remember. And I understand that. So the trauma of coming to terms with your parents' decline, and in my case, adding to that sibling rivalry that's absurd, that really piles on. You almost feel like it's your fault that your parents are declining and that it's all, people can be irrational, unreasonable, and a bit crazy. I think my sister's bipolar. And so she has these crazy moments where she just throws the most crazy accusations and threats. And who wants to wake up and find that on your text in the morning? And I thought about just blocking her. I really wasn't close to my sister. She was 8 years older than me. She left the house early. She was independent, always running around, lots of social friends. And I was just a little kid. And then she left, and then I'd see her on holidays. And this is the most time I've spent around her since I was a little boy. And I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. And my parents admit, even my mother, that what she does is unacceptable, but whatever. And I've just had to come to terms with myself emotionally, um, because of the stress of my parents' decline, which I know that was the source, even though I couldn't directly connect them, by feeling or in my mind. Because of that stress and because of my sister compounding it with constant daily attacks and put downs and just crazy stuff, um, I was almost going to have a nervous breakdown. I mean, during my break, I was getting really upset. I couldn't sleep. I'm rolling back around. This can happen to you, okay? Um, and with the help of some medication, frankly, and a great counselor who I've been working with. She's actually a coach technically, but she's a therapist really. Um, I've been working with her for many years, and I talk to her 2 hours a week, every single week. And this is something else I'm going to tell you because a lot of men resist this. They need to change. Um, I couldn't have survived this experience. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it wasn't for my coach. My coach helped me to deal with the trauma. Um, my coach helped me to come down off the anxiety mountain, to get perspective, to allow my fears to come at me so that I realize that they aren't tigers trying to eat me in the cave. They're ghosts. And when they leap at me with their claws and their teeth, they'll pass right through me, and my primitive brain will learn that there really is no danger. We're safe. But a lot of, I think, sources of anxiety in people come from a disconnect between our most primitive brain, our most primitive nervous systems, the reactive ones. They don't know time, they don't understand. So if you bring up a bad memory, they think it's something happening now. So you feel the anxiety and the misery coming from events that aren't happening anymore. But you keep reliving it over and over. And I think a lot of men, and maybe women too, but a lot of men, who is my target audience, will avoid dealing with it. They will bury it. Their strategy is to pretend it's not there. And if there isn't recurring incidences reigniting it, you'll eventually fade and you'll forget about it. And you think that's the end of it. If it's a mild trauma, that may be the end of it. But for many traumas, and some of these are bigger than you realize, like with my parents, I didn't realize how big it was. What's really happening is you're storing this negative energy deep in your psyche, and it will accumulate with other negative experiences, and it will come out of you, especially in your relationships, in very dysfunctional ways. You may treat your spouse or loved one as like crap. You may snap at people. You may be overly grumpy, and you just think that's the way you are. But it may not be you. This may be your stress, your trauma continuing to come out. And the beauty is that with science and experience, it has been discovered that you can destroy or you can fade away those threats, that energy, that anger, that misery, that grumpiness. All that can be dissipated by mentally going through a process, going back, imagining the events, reimagining the events that you experienced. And then when the bad feelings are triggered, the reason you don't normally want to think about them because you'll relive all that bad feeling, stand bravely, let down your shields, and let it attack you. And it's really helpful for me to imagine a tiger. and they're baring their teeth and they leap at me with their claws straight out, their teeth bared, and I'm about to die. And then it passes right through me like a ghost. It's empowering when you learn that all you're doing is you're experiencing old memories as if they're happening now. Your modern human brain doesn't get that. It doesn't understand. This doesn't make any sense to it. And your primitive brain senses all the signs that you're in danger, imagines there's a real tiger, and goes into the fight, flight, or freeze, or whatever they call it, reactions, and that releases all kinds of nice chemicals in your system that are not good for you. Cortisone is one of the worst, and I think it's cortisol, um, adrenaline and stuff like. And it's makes you shaking. It makes you paranoid. It's not good for you. And so relieving by facing that bugaboo that you're not even thinking about, you just don't understand why you're feeling this, it will go away. That energy will dissipate with this process. This is something my coach or my therapist taught me. I would never have known this if I hadn't been taught this. There are millions and millions of men out there who, in their macho genius, think, I don't need any help. Hell with that. I'm a man. I remember John Wayne was like this. He's a man's man. And he didn't go to no shrinks. He had a very low attitude, a very low opinion of shrinks, psychologists, psychiatrists. Some of them are nuts, and some reason why some of them go to school because they're trying to figure their own crazy out. But the truth is, if you can find a good one, you can find someone to help you, guide you through the traumas of life. And you've got them. We all have them. They're a big cause of relationship problems. I can't tell you how many marriages, how many relationships I've seen go down. Both sides are just being stubborn. They really don't have a substantial issue, but they can't seem to be happy. And what they're really doing is they're reliving shit from their childhood. They don't realize it. They married one of their parents effectively, their personality traits, and they're trying to fix them the way they couldn't fix their parents. And they fail and they get upset and they remember. It's like in their subconscious, they remember traumas from childhood, or at least they remember the feeling of those traumas. And they get angry and nasty. And next thing you know, they're getting a divorce. And they just say, I'm going to marry someone else, someone who's cool, someone who understands me, someone who will make me happy. Okay? But here's the deal, people don't make you happy. I'm sure you've heard this. If your idea is that I'm just going to find the love of my life and settle down and be happy, it doesn't exactly work that way. You have to bring your own happy. I mean, love in relationships, a successful relationship is an island. And there's nothing there unless you bring it there. If you want love, you have to bring your love and you're going to share it with the other person. And if you're good at choosing a partner, they're doing the same. And you both give each other the love you have inside. Where does that love come from? My coach believes it comes from God, and it's the God energy. You can believe whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But some kind of higher power or energy, the universe or whatever hippie thing you want to call it. I believe it exists. I believe it's good. And that's where good energy comes from. And if we just let it in, it's our natural state. If we reduce our need to not believe, our need to be in total control of everything, to let go and let God, as I say, and once again, I'm using the G word. Some people don't like that. I understand. If you had fanatic parents and all that, I'm sorry for that. But I use that word because I believe in God. Everybody's different. Let go and let God. Just let go. Just like when you let the tiger attack you. Have faith. These are religious terms, but they mean something. Just know that that is a paper tiger. It's a ghost tiger. And trust that you're not going to fall down a chasm and disappear and die. If you let go and trust and focus on love, keep it in your heart, spread it to others, take it from others, learn how to receive. Some people, including me, have difficulty receiving love. These are caretakers, people that give, something from their childhood. If you can learn to receive love, it's a cycle of energy, then you can have a really good life. That's, I think, the secret to having a good life. They say that not 70%, 90% of happiness is finding the right partner. I've seen that written many times, and I think it's probably true. If you don't have the right partner, you're miserable. If you have the right partner, you can be very happy. Your goal as a man should be to find someone full of love. Obviously, you want someone that arouses you, that you're attracted to, that you can have fun with, all the things that your personality requires, obviously. But if they don't have a lot of love to give you, if they're a love sponge and they just soak it up and don't give it, it's not going to work. You can't save her. And she's got to have it already. And that's a very important decision to make, is your partner, obviously. And that's what I recommend. Um, so I've talked about what I've gone through dealing with parents who are declining. I've talked a little bit about love and good feeling and relationships and what we all need to do to find that and not just throw this one away on a whim kind of thing and just go looking for a new one because you're just going to repeat the same mistakes and if you stay in your second marriage, which I think 70% of second marriages fail or something like that. Maybe it's 60, 70. I think it's 70. They fail because the people have already given up once and they're seeing the same signs in the second marriage. All the things they thought would be perfect turned out to be illusions, projected by you from your ideal pretend images onto this individual who is not responsible for those. And hey, some people are just bad news and you realize that after you get together and you need to get rid of them. But look for people whose basic core is honest, has integrity, is giving and kind and loving. That's what I look for. And especially that have a lot of love to give, because that's how you'll receive it. And then teach yourself to receive love. Believe that you are due that love, that it's appropriate for you. It's not wrong that you should be loved, because a lot of people have that message. It's all kinds of shrink stuff. I think the big point I was making there is how important it is to have a therapist or coach or counselor who's really good. And you got to look for them and find one that fits your personality. Like I said, I couldn't have survived without my coach. I really couldn't. I would have made the wrong decision multiple times. Many times I've talked to us about something that's happened and this is what I think I should do. And she would set me straight. And I'd be so confident and so sure. And I'm like, what the F? I mean, what are you talking about? It was only later because I took her advice because, I'm paying her and she didn't cost a fortune, but she gave me a big break. God bless her. But anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, if I hadn't have had that guidance, that support, not only through emotionally difficult times, but just teaching me how to live as a male in my 50s, and I am, and on the upper end. So, how to live best, how to not just survive, but reinvent my life, because that's what I'm doing. I was a late bloomer. I always felt like I missed out on a great deal of youth life. And so part of me wants to experience some of that now. My kids are gone, no wife to worry about, and hopefully we get that paperwork done. And, except for my parents, I was pretty stable. I was going out on the road and already planning this to be a free and easy, man. Um, my income, I can do that online, not from this, but I do this to share, you know, and see if it helps anybody. And I hope it does. Um, but anyway, I'm in the middle of redesigning my life, and I wanted to be a model for you, to show you what I'm doing to tell you my experiences, my good ones, and especially my bad ones so that you can avoid them or learn how to deal with them. But if anything comes out of listening to today's video and podcast or whatever we call this, if anything comes out of it, I want you to remember that you need a guide. You cannot do this alone. And if you think you can, you're almost doomed for failure. That attitude, I have to do it by myself, that's going to take you down the wrong road. How many years do you have left to waste because of your pride and arrogance? Because that's what that is. Oh, I don't need any help. Bullshit. Everybody needs help. You need guidance. You need the right guidance. Take the time, try several. If you don't like them, forget them. Try another one. You are worth the effort. You are worth the effort to find the right person and to find something in your budget to pay them. And you're looking for someone who is practical, who is very knowledgeable, and who is dedicated to you growing up, frankly. Because that's what I'm doing. In a lot of ways, I'm finally leaving home. Um, because in many ways, I never left home as a kid. Like I said, a very late bloomer. And I may have talked about that in other podcasts, and that'll save that for a different time and we can talk about it again. But yeah, that's really my target market too, is late bloomers who are rebuilding their life after transition. And I have had a lot of transition in relationship, kids growing up and leaving, parents going through decline. I've had a huge financial transition. Early in my life, I had a lot of money. See those bricks behind me? My house looked like that. I built it when I was in my 20s. It was a mansion. I had a business. My dad was my silent partner, but he just provided financing. I ran it nationwide. I was a broker of heavy equipment, and I made a lot of money, man. I had no expenses. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, and I could do that anytime. We used fax machines in those days. And so, I decided to go to law school because I was freaking bored. I mean, it's hard to believe, but I was bored. So I went to law school, and it was a fantastic experience for me. Very hard, very tough. But it taught me what I was capable of and gave me confidence that I never had before. And that was a big cornerstone to my life. And then later, I learned about I had anxiety. I didn't even know I did. A therapist I had at that time taught me that I had anxiety. I started taking some SSRI, and damn, the first thing I noticed was I realized there was this buzz that was always in my side, like a stitch, always a buzzing. And I never noticed it before, but now I noticed it because it was gone. I remembered the shadow of it. I remembered, wait a minute, where's the buzz? There was a buzz. That was just nerves. That was anxiety. That was heightened chemicals that don't belong in your system, all coming from undiagnosed, untreated trauma. Eventually, I kind of diagnosed myself as having CPTSD, which is complex, post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, in my childhood, I experienced emotional incest. This is not sexual incest, but emotional. And you want to look these words up. It's all over the internet. And that really squashed me as an individual. So I've had to rebuild myself. When I first realized that my relationship with my ex was over, I also realized something else. First off, I was very poor because we had had a huge setback in '08 with the crash. We were heavily in real estate, and it just devastated us. So we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. So we just stayed in the same house. And back then, I realized that I was not emotionally or mentally a good partner to anyone. I mean, I always blamed my partner for being the cause, and her condition. We figured out she had a condition. She was on the autism spectrum when our two kids were determined to be on the autism spectrum, our two middle kids. And they're doing great, actually thriving, which has been work for us. You have to push them with what they call a loving push to get them going. or else they'll be living at your house at 45 playing video games. That's how it works. But anyway, I realized that I was unfit to be a partner, that I couldn't even accept love anyway because I had been a caretaker my whole life to my mom, for example, emotionally when I was a kid. And then later on, I felt like that caretaker and I felt like I had to give to others, which is nice for them. But you tend to attract vampires, emotional vampires who suck the energy out of you and don't give anything back. And then when I did get stuff back, I didn't know how to accept it. So I ended up marrying somebody who didn't give it because it felt safe. It felt like home. So that marriage was ultimately doomed from the beginning. I just didn't know it. So I've been working on myself for years now. This was probably 10 years ago. I started this, maybe no longer, maybe 15. I've been doing this for a long time. And I started working on myself with therapy. I went to, what do you call it, workshops and traveled out to the hippie land in California and Colorado. And some of their stuff was really good. And I'm not a hippie or hippie fan, but I knew that it was intelligent. I went to one program that its explanation for what it was sounds ridiculous, but reality, what it was like high speed therapy. I mean, I did years of therapy in one long weekend. It was amazing. Cried. I never cry. I can't cry. I still have a problem crying. It's one of the challenges where my emotions still aren't fully released. And I'm always working. It's like peeling an onion, always improving, but I feel much stronger. Um, my ex has actually told me that if I had met you the way you are now when we were, struggling, I would have never let you go, kind of thing. Maybe that's what she's doing. But anyway, I'm a new person. My kids say I'm a totally new person. And this is all because I have faced those tigers. It is huge, but I couldn't do it without guidance to tell me how. So I need you guys to get that goddamn chip off your shoulder, that ego, that male arrogance. I don't need no help. Get off your ass and go find a good therapist, someone you like, someone you can deal with. Not someone's a yes man or woman, not somebody that's going to tell you what you want to hear, reinforce your own ideas. You need to be prepared to hear shit you don't want to hear, to accept that shit. You either believe it or you don't. If you really don't believe it, then goddamn it, get a new therapist. But don't forum shop, and that's a lawyer term. I went to law school. But don't go out and keep shopping until you find somebody that tells you what you want, because it's a waste of your money and time. Find someone who you trust. Find someone whose heart you really trust, that they're pure and that they have their shit together. You'll know it. You'll know people have their shit together. They have a quiet confidence that stands out. And they're often quiet in the background. You don't even know they're there. And then suddenly when you take a look at them, you're like, God damn, that person has got their shit together. So, and my coach does. In fact, I went to men's workshops, which were really fantastic. And I met her at one of those, like a third day. It was a 3-day conference. I've been to several. It's a 3-day workshop. And on the third day, they brought women in. Before that, it was only men allowed. And then we learned, how we interact with women, what we do, what is a turn off, what's a turn on. It was like dating practice a little bit, but its main focus was to teach us how other people see us, because how you see yourself is not how the world sees you. You'd be shocked. Some ways they think better of you, and other ways they don't. They think worse of you, and you need to have your eyes wide open. If you are willing to live your life in a fantasy, and most of us do, where you have beliefs of yourself that you're not comfortable having them challenged, if you have beliefs of the way the world exists that you're not comfortable having challenged, you're already dead, dude. You're already dead, because you're never going to learn. You're never going to grow. I love to be found wrong. I make statements a lot of times. I teach stuff to my kids and people, and somebody will come and call me on it. One time, I was having a discussion with my ex, and we were already split. And it wasn't real heated, but she was determined that she was right. And I was determined I was right. And I knew it in my mind. I was right. She was just ridiculous. She was full of shit. And we kept talking about it. We kept disputing it. And I kept thinking and looking at it. And then in my mind, I guess I turned it sideways. And I said, holy fuck. She's right. I am totally wrong. You know what I did? I called her up and said, I was wrong, totally wrong. You're absolutely right. I agree with you. I thought about it and I figured it out. And that taught me that just because I feel totally confident in my opinion that I'm right, I've done the analysis, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily right. And after that experience, I felt wonderful. I didn't have my ego burst. I learned something, and I love to learn. So if you learn something, you grow as a human being, you grow stronger, you grow more powerful. So think of being accepting things about yourself you don't like as growing and becoming more powerful. And also remember, there are things that you think bad about yourself that are bullshit. Things you learned when you were a kid, things somebody told you. You can't do that. Forget that shit. You're not allowed to cry, whatever. Stuff that you think you got to do, lessons you learned as a child that are dysfunctionally still affecting your life. It is amazing how many survival skills that we develop as very small children based on the world as we were experiencing it in those moments. Things that we learn to do to protect our hearts mostly. And we're still doing a lot of them by habit. They're on robots, they're on automatic pilot. But many of these old things are no longer functional. They actually are doing damage. These are habits in your life that are damaging you, that are setting you back, that are working against your desires and needs. And they are things that you created as a child that just are now negative. Instead of helping you, they're hurting you. I've been learning with my coach to discover new ones all the time. And then we work on them, we deal with them. Um, and the more bad habits I learn and the more good habits I learn, the better I feel, the stronger I feel, the more powerful I feel, the more confident I am. If you want to be a strong, powerful, confident man whose heart is filled with love and who has a partner who is fucking awesome, because you will be awesome and you'll be able to attract the good ones. The bad ones, screw them. We don't need them anyway. Then this is the path for you, my friend. So that's what I have to say today. I very much appreciate your attention and your time, and I apologize for taking so long to do this, but I had a lot of things to take care of and process for me, and I've come through that, and I feel a lot better. And I'd love to share that with you because I get a great feeling out of helping people, I guess. I love to see people if they're challenged and I know the idea. I know what can be done. And I want to tell them. And it's like, I can help. I can help. Me. This reminds me when I was 3 years old, I heard my mother talking on the phone or maybe in person, I can't remember, to my dad. And she said, we're out of coffee. And I know my mother liked coffee. I was 3 years old now. My dad said, well, we'll go get it some other time. And she said, oh, I'm all out. So what did I do? I walked miles by myself during the day to the grocery store, crossed a busy highway, went into the store, got a basket, 3 years old now, nobody stopped me, went around, threw things in it, found the coffee my mother likes, threw that in there, and then I was heading out the door without paying, of course. And as I was in the parking lot pushing the cart, a neighbor saw me, and I remember parts of this. I remember walking there. I remember reaching a corner and looking way up in the air and seeing the street sign with the green metal, signs with the white lettering. And I remember just the one feeling, twinge, feeling like, what do I do? Do I turn here? And then I remember saying, relax and follow the instinct. And it told me to turn. So I just relaxed and turned, and I just kept following that until there I was. So coming out, I'm in the parking lot with this basket full of stolen goods. A neighbor sees me and starts heading towards me, calling me because my parents had called out the National Guard by that point. And I started crying. I broke out crying. Why was I crying? Was I afraid of the neighbor? Hell no. I wanted to prove I could do this. I was overprotected by my mother and didn't let me do anything. And I wanted to prove I can do stuff. I'm useful. I have abilities. And instead, I got squashed after that. I mean, my behavior, my life was totally restricted after that. And I understand the trauma that my parents experienced from that. But you can have the power. I have the power to give to you. I can do it. I've experienced this shit. I may not be right, but at least you'll have one perspective from someone who's been there, who's lived it, and who's come out the other end. And I wasn't shit, I was better. Gonna reverse poop, going the other way. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I like. That's what I want to do for you. And if you like it, tell me. Tell me. Leave a comment and tell me what you like about what I've talked about, what I haven't. Leave questions, something that your problem you're facing, and you want to know if I've ever faced it or if I have any suggestions. I would love to help. Please send it. So, till next time, thank you, folks, and have a great, fantastic day.